One of the many reasons why CD Projekt Red has become so beloved over the years is because of their ability and willingness to provide amazing storytelling combined with feature-rich gameplay. When The Witcher 3 came out, the core experience was already packed with hundreds, if not even thousands of hours of entertainment in a time when other companies started shifting towards releasing incomplete games in the name of bigger profits. The two expansions and the amazing support that followed after the game's release is what made Witcher 3 one of the best games of its generation and the prime example of how video games should be made. Well, it seems that CD Projekt Red is set on delivering the same design philosophy with Cyberpunk 2077 and even go a few steps beyond that, with promises of course of a very satisfying and complete story arc and several big expansions later down the line that offer further progressions to the narrative. Thanks to a recent interview with a UI coordinator and some others over at CD Projekt Red, we got to find out more about the company's future plans with their upcoming game. So let's dive right in with the latest news and also a quick announcement of another giveaway that I'm doing with the help of the awesome people over at Instant Gaming. You can choose to enter for whichever game you want to, including of course the pre-order for Cyberpunk 2077 on the platform of your choice, or even Marvel's Avengers if you want to, but of course you can pick whichever game you want. You can take part in it by signing up on their website, choosing the game you want to play, and then complete the challenges below for more chances at winning. Anyway, going back on track, the company's aim with Cyberpunk 2077 is to deliver a completely finished game at launch with a very rewarding main story that sets the pace for future expansions, and not so much relying on throwing out the door another incomplete game for the sake of over monetizing it later down the line, which seems to be the norm these days with other big AAA companies. According to Alvin Liu, the UI coordinator over at CD Projekt Red, who gave this exclusive interview, he mentions that Cyberpunk 2077 is going to have a very satisfying story arc, drawing parallels with Witcher 3's main story, which had a similar rich and very compelling narrative. There's going to be a big emphasis on character development, with characters evolving over time, going through conflicts and even resolving them, and according to his statement, we're not withholding content, we're not withholding story for the future to try to monetize it or sell it in pieces or anything like that. You are going to get the whole full value game here, and the plan, just like in the case of their previous game years ago, is to further build on that rich narrative and then bring even more richer experience from that. Witcher 3's expansions, especially the latest Blood and Wine, was almost as big as a whole game in itself, and it's interesting to see how the same approach is being taken with this game as well, with Cyberpunk 2077, which already looks massive to begin with. The interview already talks about multiple such expansions in the future, not just one, so you can only imagine how rich this will become and how it will develop over time. CDPR already wants to make sure everything is complete, but also build additional open worlds on top, to give the players the chance to see what happens with the characters, the world, and the story they come in contact with once the main story arc is complete. Even more so when we already know that our choices will play an active role into how the story develops over time. There's already talks about multiple endings very similar to the ones in Witcher 3, deeper and more impactful choices, and we even got to find out just how impactful our choices will be, as it seems that some of them are rumored to have an impact on the location we start the game in. So in the beginning of the game, you already know that you are given a very high amount of options on your character creation. You can pick a gender, which the latest news points to the fact that CDPR is now working on giving transgender options for the players, and you can pick faces, you can pick the color of the skin, your hairstyles, a lot of facial features, voices, and a whole lot more features that will let you define your character however you like, even like investing a few points in the beginning of the game. But the ones that I find the most interesting are of course the backstories. You can pick a backstory for your character, which have been confirmed to alter a lot about your gameplay, about the story that you get to experience, how they can branch out, and what dialogue choices you can pick with certain characters once you get in contact with, and how certain parts of the story can even end up based on your backstory to begin with. There are three main backstories you can pick in the beginning of the game right at the character creation. There is the Nomad backstory, a Mad Max-like roaming gang existence. Street Kid is another one, an urchin upbringing in the city, and finally corporate, an origin among the straight-laced life. So just from what these backstories imply, you can already see where this is going. There are strong indications that based on these choices you make as early as the character creator, even your starting locations will start being different. So if you choose the nomad background, you can be one of the nomads as a player, and you start as a part of a gang called nomads in a location outside of the night city called Badlands. It's a sort of like a wasteland that surrounds the city itself, and it's filled with specific quests and areas to explore, as well as the characters that you get to meet. This was something that the lead quest designer mentioned in an interview, but couldn't go into more detail without spoiling too much, so this is all we know so far, but it's safe to assume that your backstory is going to have a huge impact on the narrative. A different GameSpot preview talked about the influence the Street Kid backstory had on one of the conversations in the game, which in turn leads to different responses from the characters and possibly even the entire missions branching out depending on those choices that you pick. Of course, there's a lot more to it than this, with skill points also being factored in, like having points invested into intelligence trait that opens up other dialogue options for you, and of course not all of these options, branching narratives and different interactions will have an impact over the entire story. Some of them will probably not. Cyberpunk 2077 is definitely not the first game to introduce these kinds of concepts, but the game was mentioned to do a great job at combining all of these together and make them more meaningful, and meaningful enough to create a more immersive and interactive experience. Through all of this, you're going to play through the eyes of your own character that you create, but he's not the only main character in the game. Johnny Silverhand, played by Keanu Reeves, is going to have another major role throughout the vast majority of the game, almost being described as a second main character. He is in your head, he's your digital ghost, so to speak, and you do start forming a sort of relationship with him. Even though he can't really interact with the world around him, or well, around you, he can give you advice, he does have a relationship with you, and you can choose how you collaborate or not collaborate with him. You can listen to his advice, you can go against it, you can proceed how you want to, and you're going to be able to find different resolutions depending on your collaboration you have with him. It's very interesting how CDPR is going on about this, with not that many games out there exploring this kind of narrative style and interaction, at least not on the top of my mind. There's a very important reason to why he is in your head, talking to you. It's a major plot point that appears very well crafted and compelling, and it leads you to learning more about the character itself, which is one of the essential and very important characters of the Cyberpunk lore. So there's a lot more about this interaction that we have with him that goes throughout the game, but I honestly can't say too much without going into spoilers territory. Another comparison I found rather interesting with the same Witcher 3 was the way players get to summon vehicles in Cyberpunk 2077. So just like in Witcher 3, where you pretty much whistle to call Roach from anywhere, almost anywhere, there's going to be a similar mechanic for Cyberpunk as well, thanks to the magic of self-driving cars, according to a PC Gamer article from a few days back. Basically, as the article goes on, because these cars are equipped with AI, if you call the car or the vehicle, you will see it driving towards you and arriving at your location. And the same applies of course to motorcycles as well, and you can just leave them wherever you want to and then later call them once you feel like driving around or wanted to take them for a fast drive towards your next destination. I think many players miss the fact that the cinematic trailer also hinted towards this very fact, the fact that there's going to be self-driving cars in the game. There's a scene at some point where we can see V and Jackie running away from a hail of bullets to a car, they jump in it, and then that car is pretty much self-driven by the AI. Possibly even the same AI that later on diagnoses Jackie's wound and V even smashes the screen off. So it's really interesting to see what conversations and interactions you can have with that AI, though you will find out more about this at PAX West next month, or well, at the end of August, so in like a couple of months. There's going to be a lot more info coming up with the new gameplay at that time, so look forward to PAX West starting on like 30 August, and it goes up until like the 2nd of September. And there's going to be a lot more info coming up on Cyberpunk as well. The past few days have been quite wild, with a lot more interviews from CD Projekt Red employees, with a lot of information from the company itself, so look forward and stay tuned for more info on this. In the meantime, of course, if you enjoyed this video and if you enjoy clicking buttons, then you might want to consider giving this video a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel, as that would be very much appreciated, and also activate that notification bell if you want to get these videos as early as possible. And I will see you guys next time, so peace out.